Hey everybody, this is Doc Mac from the Galloping Ghost Arcade out in Brookfield, Illinois. It is Friday, February 10th, 2017, and we are here today with a very special game unveil. It's number 578 here. Earlier today we put up Warzard from Capcom, and it's such an incredible game. We were very happy to see so many people excited to play that. It's also known as Red Earth. That was the US release. Great Capcom fighting game, pretty obscure. Put out on the CPS3 hardware, and it was one that we've been waiting to get on the floor for a long time. Took us a long time to find that one, but not as long as it took us to find this game. This game, the only hint that we've given so far is that it is an unreleased prototype. So let's summon forth former Gamer of the Year, Pete Hahn, the master of execution, to help me unveil today's game and then give a little bit of inside information on what it is. Maybe you've heard of it, you probably haven't. It is, number 578 is Chimera Beast. Released from Jaleco, or not released from Jaleco in 1993. This is a super obscure game that there are, I couldn't even say how many boards created. 2, maybe, at best, maybe 3. This was one that early on when we were going through, when the arcade was opening up, I went through MAME and played every single game on there for the most part. And this was one that just out of random, I played and was, wow, this game is awesome. It's really cool. It reminded me a little bit of Garez or Gaiaris, I forget how you say that on Genesis, and Biohazard Battle, and little X Multiply, now I can see that, but just such a cool game. And then when I was looking for the board, I never saw one. Researching a little bit more, I found out that it was this prototype game that was canceled in '93. A few years ago, one popped up. Somebody started talking about it on Twitter, and it actually has its Chimera Beast has its own Twitter account, and they were touring it around Japan and putting it in various arcades for people to play. And such a cool game. And how we got this one, that's a story I really can't go into, but original board, we're so happy to have it here. We put in a new cabinet. Seth and I finished it up this morning. We got some custom-made side art, custom-made marquee, and definitely a really cool game. We've seen main playthroughs on it, and I believe it is on one of the emulator boards as well. BBH has done a complete 1cc playthrough, no miss, on this, and we'll see if anybody's able to do that here ever, but maybe BBH will come in one day, because that would be absolutely amazing. But this is such a rare, obscure prototype game, and we are so happy to have it here. Most people have probably never heard of this game, and it's one of those that, that's one of the funnest things for me is to, we have so many amazing players that come here, and to be able to put up a game that it just they missed back in the day. Basically, you play as an eater, and your ship mutates. You're collecting DNA. With the second button, your mouth shoots off, and you hit enemies with it, and that will evolve your character. So let's see, James White? Let's summon forth former Gamer of the Year, James White, to give our inaugural playthrough on this. Chimera Beast. There is a good ending and a bad ending to this game. James White, have you ever heard of Chimera Beast?
No.
Excellent. Microbes is stage 1. He's shooting with his, now he's evolving. Now he has a different charge weapon. So it's like, now when he lets go, it does a full screen explosion. And Now he has a different special weapon. So he took some damage. He's a little bit smaller now. Now those are giving him options like in Gradius. So it's such a unique game. Like a lot of stuff coming from behind early on. Your tail can damage stuff if you have the right created monster, or the created eater, I should say. It is definitely a tough game. Again, so many various forms. Here's the first boss. It's actually pulling him in. He's got those side missiles. When it comes out of its shell, it actually pulls you towards it. For those just joining us, today's mystery prototype game, Chimera Beast. Not released in 1993. James getting through level 1. Again, this is an unreleased prototype game. Now on to stage 2, which is called Fish. Fish. Stage 2, Fish. James has evolved into having these spiked arms that stick out from the side. You can use those to ram enemies with. This will not count towards 10x. This is, however, instantly eligible for hardcore championship matches. Definitely a tough game. You've got to use a blend of bullets and biting. Very aggressive enemy patterns in this. It's really interesting about they do not want you sitting at the back of the screen with the amount of enemies coming from behind you. And there he goes. James takes out the mid boss. James can also hold down that fire button to charge a shot and then let it go, and it does a big explosion. James grabbing those green ones. Those are options like from Gradius. Seven stages to the game, and again, multiple endings. Yeah, you can't say that. I had to do a screen capture. That's James White putting up the first score, getting the level 2 boss. Very awesome. Congrats to James White. James White, what do you think of Chimera Beast? You know, you're probably outside of people who work here and myself. I always get the inaugural game, but you're probably the first person in the U.S. to play this game on an original board. What do you think about that? James White loves it, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't say anything.
You want to give it a try? James White going at it again. Again, for those just joining us, today we've unveiled a mystery prototype game released from Jaleco, and it wasn't released from Jaleco. It was a prototype. It never actually came out. It was being worked on in 1993. The game was actually completed, but did not get a full release on it. So it's this game got a lot of attention a while back, a couple years ago. A Twitter account was started for it, and one of the, I believe it was one of the creators, was basically putting the game on tour. It is not on Arcade. We will be adding this to Arcade momentarily. And again, this is one of those things that, one of our favorite things here at the arcade to do is to be able to take games that people might have missed, and this is definitely one of those. Like, never came out in the U.S. The only known boards are in Japan. So for us to get a hold of this has been. This was one I had it on our list, and I pulled it off because it was one of those where if I ever saw it, I knew I would get it, but what would the chance of coming across this prototype? So I had actually pulled it off the list. It's on there. That's it. Chimera Beast. You want the next game of it?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can show you the thing you can get back in.
So this is definitely one that I never thought we would get our hands on, and so happy that we actually have it. It's very reminiscent to me of Biohazard Battle, which was a personal favorite on the Sega Genesis. And while there is a Mega Play version of Biohazard Battle, there was no true arcade version, so that was always kind of disappointing. So this is about as close as we're going to get. It's kind of a cross between Gaiara's and Biohazard Battle, and a little bit of Gradius thrown in there. And just such a cool game, and very happy to have that here for everybody to enjoy. It's one of those things where you never know if the board didn't end up here, if it ended up in a collector's possession somewhere. That's really cool that it's preserved and everything, but you lose on it actually being enjoyed by everybody. And very happy that it has made its way here amongst all of our other prototypes that we have here. Our collection of prototypes has really been growing quite a bit. International Team Laser. Yeah. Beavis and Butthead from Atari, Arena, Argus, RC Squared, Trog prototype, unreleased version of Narc, Primal Rage 2. That was a full release. But it's just so great to be able to offer so many games that never came out, and in that sense, I remember one of the big things for me was going to an arcade and seeing the new games come out. And for some of our regular and veteran players, they've seen a lot. Like there's players, when I put Crystal of the Kings out, or Edward Randy, there was a few people that were like, hey, I know that game. And that's awesome. Like, love hearing that. But it's always the challenge to try to put out stuff that nobody has ever had a chance to play. And while people, I know this game got a lot of popularity when they were talking about it on the, when the developer made a Twitch account for it, it's something different to be able to play it in an arcade on a real board and not on a MAME or anything, or I think it was one of the 412s or something had it on there, I believe. But this is an original dedicated board. And we are happy to have it here. It'll be playable for anyone and everyone. Pete Hahn.
Should I stop the local recorder?
Yeah, we're going to wrap up our local recording. Again, one last time, our prototype game that we put out is Chimera Beast, not released in 1993 by Jaleco.
Oh no, it's not. Turn it on.